Dory 1, this is Fireteam Delta. Dad's coming home.
Welcome to the Military Veteran Dad Podcast, where it is our mission to bring every dad home. I am your host, Ben Cloy. I'm a United States Marine veteran, husband, and a father. We will bring authentic conversations to inspire action in your life so we can close the gap between the dad you are today and the dad you want to be tomorrow. This is the Military Veteran Dad Podcast.
Welcome back to Military Veteran Dad Fatherhood Friday. Guys, I am dropping on the mic. My name is Ben Cloy, and I'm bringing you a message today about seasons. This message came to me about 2 years ago through a friend, and it's really helped me guide myself through. It's helped this podcast be born. It's helped me say no to things. It's helped me say yes to things. And the big idea with this message is everything has a season. Now let's pull back a little bit from that. Now you got the topic. I want to pull back. Right now, we are in the middle of fall here in southern Wisconsin. As I look out my window, the leaves are completely gone. I was reminded of this as I just went on a walk on a nearby path after dropping my daughter off at preschool, and I just wanted to unplug. And it was really good to be connected and reminded that the seasons are changing, that within nature, there isn't that permanence, but there is that cycle. And there is that continuation of change. We'll go from fall, we'll go to winter, we'll go to spring, and then summer, and then it repeats. And what this idea of seasons really applies to is when you have, say, a big idea, when you need to do something, or you have an opportunity within your business, your personal life, wherever it may be. There is a question that I always ask myself, and like I said, it comes from this reminder that seasons change, and that while this may seem like a no now, it's not a no forever, because just like the seasons change, so does my life change. There's going to be a point where my kids are no longer a factor in my life, whether I say yes or no to something. There's going to be different times where they don't want to hang out with me as much anymore when they're teenagers. That's a different season of life. There is a time when I had younger kids, when they were like toddlers and babies. That was a very significant feeling. And I remember it very overwhelmed, tired, exhausted. But that season of life changed. I didn't always have sleepless nights because the kids were crying and waking us up at 1 a.m. All of that changed. There wasn't a permanence, even though I know if you have a newborn right now, you're like, God, did they ever go to sleep? But trust me, they do. And eventually they'll continue. They'll have a good bedtime routine, and you'll start doing different things. And there was a big question when I had to decide launch this podcast, because I had about 5 to 6 different ideas for a podcast, all of them different categories. They weren't anything related to each other. And I'm like, all of these are really good ideas. And I'm like, how do you pick which was the right one? And this question came into my life, and I remember asking myself, which podcast is right for this season? And when I asked it that, there was only one clear answer. I'm a dad. My kids are young. I'm going to launch a dad podcast that aligns with this season of my life. There may be a time where my kids are older, and that season no longer says like the dad podcast isn't necessarily right for that season. Maybe I want to go bigger because I have more time and more freedom and I can do more things with my time. But right now, being a dad, creating a dad podcast, that was the season that molded together. And here's an important aspect within this. Saying no to the other 4 to 5 ideas doesn't mean it's a no forever. It just means that this isn't the right season. And so maybe 10 years from now, down the road, one of those podcasts that I didn't want to do now, or that didn't feel like it fit in right now, it'll make perfect sense. And so when you have an overwhelming amount of ideas, and I always had more ideas than I knew what to do with, I always ask myself, what was the correct season? And once I had this clarity to ask myself this question, so much more became visible of what I could do and what I didn't want to do. Another example is professional speaking. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that professional speaking is very high up on the places that I want to be. And when I had a job, one of the questions or things I told myself was that it requires me to be on the road. And this was my perception of it. Requires me to be on the road, requires time away from the kids. That's going to be a sacrifice. And I was like, I don't think I want to write that check right now. But you know what? When I'm 45, I'm probably perfectly going to be okay being a professional speaker and not having to worry about that trading time issue. So what I did was I started investing in being a professional speaker in small amounts. So that way, when the season was right, I was ready. Same analogy with here in southern Wisconsin, your snowblower. You don't need it in the summer, but you want to make sure that it's tuned up for the winter while it's nice out and you can work in the garage and you can change the oil. Meanwhile, that's a reminder to myself that I need to get my snowblower ready before winter hits because I will be that guy out there when it's freezing trying to get it working. But this idea of the right season can apply to so many different things. And so going back to that professional speaking, I joined Toastmasters about 2 years ago. And this was my way to kind of mentally put in the work or put in some reps to get in touch with a future that I couldn't necessarily see, but I got to touch it and I got to be with it a little bit. And I also got to just grow with it and figure out what did it really look like? What could I really do with it? And just kind of continue to explore it. And while I wasn't going all in, I was still putting in reps to get in touch with that. Being able to touch your future in very small ways. So like if you're listening to this and you've got this big audacious goal in your head and you're like, man, that feels like 15 years away. Find a small way to touch that goal today. And then slower and slower, when that season comes around, you're like, man, I'm here. You're ready. It's not like you wake up one day and you know how to manage an Instagram account with 50,000 followers. You learn how to manage an Instagram account with 50,000 followers by managing a smaller account daily. And you just build those little small reps that you're building the recipe and the ingredients for something bigger in your life later. So again, to circle it back, when you have something in your life and you're wondering, is this the right time? Do I do it now or do I do it later? Ask yourself the most powerful question that I think as a dad to choose when to do something and when not to do something. What season of my life does that idea best fit with? I'm positive when I'm 50, that season of my life will have abundance of opportunities. And I'll probably have to develop a news question to get through it because at that point, like all the opportunities will be there, depending on wherever my life looks like when I'm 50. But right now, when you're a dad and you have so many different changing priorities, your kids are getting older, ask yourself, what season of life am I in? That's first to identify. What season of life are you physically in right now? And number two, figure out what season it might look in. So like I said, when professional speaking, I was like, you know what? In 10 years from now, my kids aren't going to want to hang out with me. I'm perfectly fine waiting. And that's my big goal. Well, when I lost my job, I took my big goal and stretched it into the now. But I was only actually able to do that because I had been slowly putting in the reps. And I was like, man, I've been touching this future for 2 years. I really want more of this future. Didn't know COVID was on the horizon, but the dream is still alive. And even through COVID, I have still continued to invest in my professional speaking and getting better at crafting my speech, writing speeches. And each one of those little steps has led to something bigger and bigger. And just like going to the gym to work on a bicep, you got to put in the reps. You just don't wake up with the rock-sized biceps on your arms. You got to do the work. You got to put in those reps. And so you're training sometimes for a different season. And sometimes you get to do the thing you want. Like this podcast for me is the thing that I said, this makes sense within this season of my life that I'm working. Even from an entrepreneur standpoint, I had to decide, how am I going to make money this year to produce and sustain my dream of being a stay-at-home dad? There's a lot of ideas out there, and a lot of them required a lot of my time during the day to manage. So a lot of them were instantly crossed off, and I always had this idea, which idea is going to best align with being able to connect with my kids freely during the day and not feel like I have to sit at my desk for 8 hours to feel like I have to make money. And one of those ways was podcast editing. Podcast editing is something that I've been using throughout this year, been growing different relationships within the podcast world, outside of the military space even. And it's been something I've been using to produce revenue, and I can do that at night. I can do it in the morning. I can do it at any different time. It's got almost maximum amount of flexibility, and it fits the season that I'm in right now. And like I said, the seasons are always going to change, and I'm always going to have to continue to evolve this. But when you understand the power of recognizing the seasons, you recognize the power to be able to say no. And when you can say no, but not yet, it's even more powerful because you're not saying goodbye. You're not saying like, man, that dream's going to haunt me in my deathbed. You're saying that that dream isn't right for this season of my life, and it's just going to be a different season because not every idea fits into your life right now. And if you truthfully, honestly answered it yourself, what season of life am I in? you will think and know that's not the right season for me. This season has this types of requirements. It has this types of ways that I need to serve my family. Which one of those is going to work best with what I'm putting in front of it? So I hope this message really helped you guys. And I know that life is continuing to challenge us out there. We've got continuing things going on in the world, whether it be politics, your career, your job, the uncertainty in the world is continuing to go up. Corona cases continue to go up. Know that you are loved, you are enough, and you are a good dad. Breathe into that good dad feeling. Hug your kids twice as much each day because they can be that rock that reflects back that love that you feel for yourself and grounds you in that context of like a rock in your life to come back to when you feel lost a little bit. So with that, I'm signing off. Guys, have an amazing weekend, and I will talk to you guys again on Monday.